Good morning and welcome to Wild Wednesday here at the Kansas City Zoo. I'm your host, Allison, and I'm here with Andrea.
Hello.
And Brian doing training in the background. Now, we are behind the scenes at Polar Bear Passage. Now, this looks a little different than the outdoor exhibit, but this is actually where a lot of the magic happens. So what exactly is happening just behind us?
Yeah, so Brian is doing a training session with Berlin. This gives us an opportunity to just kind of see how she's doing. We check everything out. She has a lot of behaviors that allow us to look at different parts of her body. She has an open mouth behavior that we have trained so that we can look at her teeth and make sure her teeth are doing good. We have a paw behavior where she'll lift her paw up so we can see the bottoms of her paws. She has a half and an up position so that we can look at like her belly and kind of maybe parts you don't like see real easily on a day-to-day basis.
It's like just checking out all that full body condition.
Yes.
Yeah, very cool. Now, Berlin has been here at the Kansas City Zoo about how long?
She came here in 2015.
Okay, perfect. And it took her a couple different homes to get here. So what's part of Berlin's story? First, her name. I know she was named the year after the Berlin Wall fell, right?
Yeah, she was born like the year the Berlin Wall fell down. So that's why she was named that. She has a really interesting story. She had spent most of her life at the Duluth Zoo in Minnesota. Unfortunately, they had a really bad flash flood where she was flooded out of her exhibit.
Oh no.
So she was able to just kind of swim out of her exhibit. The water kind of rose that quickly.
Wow.
And they were fortunate to be able to get her back safely, but then their exhibit was ruined, so they didn't have anywhere to send her. So she went to the Como Zoo in Minnesota just because they're a neighboring zoo for about 6 months, but they had a couple of polar bears. They didn't really have a lot of room for her. And so then we were fortunate enough to be able to get her down here, and she's been here ever since.
Yay! And the Kansas City Zoo has a very nice big home for polar bears.
We do.
And we've got, it's the life of luxury for a lady like her.
Yes.
She's got plenty to do on exhibit. And we know, I've noticed over the years that Berlin, she's a particular bear. She likes to do things when she likes to do things. And I think maybe that comes with many seasons.
Right.
she's a well-seasoned bear.
She gets to make a lot of her own choices on how she spends her time.
Now, what age is Berlin about right now?
So she's 29.
Okay, is that classified as a geriatric bear?
It definitely is, yeah. She's an older bear. Usually in zoos, like 30s is getting to be pretty old.
Wow.
In the wild, 20s is getting to be pretty old. Because of the excellent health care, the steady supply of food, they're able to live a lot longer in zoos.
That's really cool. Okay, so then that makes me think, all right, then there's some adjustments that have to be made as she ages, because just like people, their bodies start to age. So what are the things you guys start to notice about Berlin that's different from when maybe she was younger and spry?
Yeah, I mean, we did get her when she's 23, so she's kind of always been an older animal, but we were aware that we were getting an older animal and kind of have been proactive from the beginning to make sure that all of her needs are met as she ages. We do a pain scale where we basically just like, does she look like she's having a hard time moving around, getting up? Do you hear her joints popping, like kind of things like that. So we track really closely like any changes that are occurring with her. She's been a very healthy bear. She hasn't had a lot of issues, but as you get older, I think as a person gets older, you start to get a little more aches and pains, a little arthritis, like things like that. So that's basically what we watch for her. And she is exhibiting some signs of things like stiffness and soreness and things like that.
So through this training, how are you guys able to help monitor those things that are happening to her physically?
Yeah, so a lot of it's just visual, again, day to day. When she's laying down and she gets up, like what does that look like? But we do have a couple of more advanced trained behaviors. Probably our biggest one is we're able to get a voluntary blood draw from Berlin. She will put her paws into these little ports and just hold while we draw blood from her. We try to do that every 2 weeks. Just one, so she keeps up with the behavior. So like if we ever need it, we'll be able to get it. But that gives us a wealth of information. So animal health is able to look at that and kind of check all of her levels, make sure that there's maybe something, not something going on that we can't maybe see outwardly, but that's going on inside of her. So we're able to monitor all of that a lot more closely.
Oh, that's so cool. And she's helping with her own healthcare, which is pretty
and
cool.
It's all voluntary. If she wants to leave, even now training with Brian, if she wants to leave at any time, she can leave. So she's choosing to be here and participate. She chooses to hold her paw there while we draw blood. her reward is she gets some nice fun treats. So
what treats are we getting today? Like her Dr. Lolly.
Yeah, so today she's getting canned chicken, which is one of her favorites.
Wow, all right. Berlin, you are a surprise. She likes all kinds of treats. What are other things that you guys give as treats for events like this?
Lots of canned meats work really well. Yeah. These bears mostly eat meat in the wild, but she also does like produce. So apples and melons are also pretty high up on the list of things that she likes.
Wow, so maybe if you see chunks of that floating in the water, you know where it came
exactly.
I'm a very large bear. That's so cool. Now, I do have one question. We talked about this earlier. We talked about how Berlin is a woman with her own mission. Yes. So is she the best patient? Does she do pretty well?
Yeah, for the doctors? It depends on maybe it's the time of day even, or the day of the week. Like I said, she gets to choose everything. So she's doing a fantastic job here. She's training and participating, which is great. Some days she comes in, she sees the food that we have, she's not interested, she leaves. So it's really completely up to her. She tends to go through phases, I would say. Wild polar bears go through phases in the year where they eat a lot and then they don't eat so much. So she kind of does that here on her own. So if she's going through a phase where she's hungry and she feels like she needs to bulk up for winter, which is kind of where we are now, she trains really well. But then when she's more in that phase where she's not as hungry, wanting to slim down for the summer, she doesn't train quite as well because food isn't as much of a motivator for her.
That makes sense. The hotter it gets, the less you want to do. You're more of a slug. I get it, Berlin. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Now, one last question. You guys, you get to see and train and be with her all the time. But when vet staff comes around, is that a different story when these behaviors are asked for? Or is it just helpful to have you guys there?
She definitely reacts differently when the vet staff's there. When we started the blood draw training, we thought it was really important that the animal health staff be involved through that whole process. So not just getting the blood. So we have one particular animal health staff that comes down. She came down, she feeds treats to Berlin, builds a relationship. So a lot of it's about building relationship with these animals so that they trust you, they know you're not gonna hurt them. So we include the animal health staff in that training process. So they come down and participate with the training as well.
That's awesome. So Berlin, you've made all kinds of new friends in your years here in Zoo World, which is awesome. Well, thank you so much, Andrea, for talking to us today. Thank you, Brian, for helping us out. I'm sure Berlin thanks you a lot. But we hope you guys have enjoyed this behind the scenes look here at the Kansas City Zoo. Join us next week for another Wild Wednesday. See you later, everybody.